Hi, welcome to this episode of Grad Student Tips. This is going to focus on how to identify an advisor, and this is the first video in a series of videos that I'm going to be making that are going to give tips specifically to graduate students about issues that come up as part of being a student in higher education. So in this first video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 4 things that you need to think about in terms of how to identify an advisor or how to evaluate your current advisor. So you might be in a situation where you're looking for a new advisor, you're not really sure how to do that, or you might be in a situation where you've been assigned an advisor, you kind of like your advisor, but how do you figure out if your advisor is going to work for you or not? So we're going to talk about that. I am Leigh Hall, PhD. You can email me any questions that you'd like to see me take up here, leahhall39@gmail.com, and please feel free to check out my blog, leahhall.wordpress.com, where I talk about issues of teaching in higher education. All right, so we're going to talk about 4 points to consider when thinking about how to find an advisor or if an advisor is a good fit for you. And there are a lot more, obviously, than this, but I think these are really important ones to consider. So first of all, personality match is important. All right, now what works for you in a personality style isn't going to work for somebody else necessarily. And just because your advisor may not have a personality that works for you doesn't mean they're a bad advisor. It just means that maybe you need somebody that's got more of a style that fits who you are as a person. All right. So, your advisor should be somebody that they're not going to be your best friend. That's not their job. So this is not about, do you share common interests, right? It's nice if you do, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about, do you get along with this person? Do you genuinely like this person, right? Did they seem to like you? Okay. I mean, I know I just said you don't have to like them, but I mean, you don't have to like them like a friend, right? That's not what we're going for here, but you don't want to be dreading meeting them, right? You do want to enjoy your time together. So think about that. And in thinking about that, you want to also think about, and I'm going to drop down to the 4th point here, which is, what is their approach to advising? So your advisor should have some kind of philosophy about how they think about advising students. And it's fine to ask them that and see what they say. You'll also figure it out over time, okay? So there's different ways to think about advising. So for example, for me, I like to provide students with some structure during the time when they're taking their courses. So when they're taking their courses, I like to see them typically once a month, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, depending on what all they have going on in their program that we might need to talk about. And then as we transition into things like dissertation proposal and the dissertation itself, I start to back off a little bit. And at that point, I am expecting that if you are my student and you need me, you will let me know that you need an appointment, and we'll make an appointment, that you have a problem, that you have a question. Or if you do need a standing appointment, I expect that you'll tell me, I need to meet with you every week or every month or whatever. I expect that you will tell me that. I'm not a big micromanager. All right, so some people do require more micromanaging. They benefit from that. They benefit more from being told what to do explicitly, even throughout their entire doctoral program. I'm not that I am that person, but I'm not that person. I try to start to transition students into their career and back off in terms of trying to be super explicit and almost like a teacher. But some people, that doesn't work well for them. So figure out what works well for you. Think about, talk to your advisor, ask them what their approach to advising is. What do they expect from you, particularly in the beginning couple of years? I have this discussion, if I have a student the entire time, I have this discussion with them twice usually, right? Once in the very beginning, like as we go through courses, the first couple of years, this is how I generally work with students. And then when we're transitioning into the dissertation phase, I have that conversation with them again. Here's how this is going to work for me. This is how I generally work with you during this part. Okay, so it's fine to have a discussion with your advisor to ask them what their approach is during this particular aspect of your academic career. How available is your advisor? Okay, now this isn't necessarily about if your advisor is in their office, because your advisor might be traveling a lot or working from home, but that doesn't mean they're not available, right? They might be available via text. They might respond to phone calls. They might respond to, Skype meetings, any number of things. But you want to think about when you try to contact your advisor, right? If you send them an email, okay, because you need to set up a meeting or you need feedback on something, how long does it take before they acknowledge your email and answer your question, right? Is it a day or two? Is it a week or two? Is it normal for you to have to follow up with them to try to get the answer? Are you trying to hunt your advisor down, right? That's probably not so good. So think about that, all right? When you send your advisor something for feedback, how long does it take to get that feedback? Is it within a reasonable time frame? Does your advisor, if you were to ask your advisor, when can you have this back to me? Are they able to communicate that to you, or do they do that automatically? So think about your advisor availability. And again, how does that style work for you or not work for you? Okay? Because really what we're doing here is we're not thinking about good advisor, bad advisor. What we're doing is we're thinking about what is your advisor like and how does that work for you as a student? Okay? Because somebody that doesn't work for you is going to work just fine for somebody else and vice versa. And then how does your advisor push you? Okay? So you want in your advisor with the relationship you have with your advisor, right? You want your advisor to play a role in helping you grow intellectually, right? So ideally, you're going to take a class that your advisor teaches, so you can get a sense of how they're going to do that, but that might not be possible. If it's not possible, regular meetings are going to help you see how they're going to push you, asking them for feedback on your work. If you don't have a class with your advisor during the first year, I do recommend offering to have them take a look at a paper that you wrote for a class, right? A recent piece of writing so that they can see how your writing is and what you might need to work on that they can help you with. So again, this falls back down to their approach and their style, but think about who's going to push and challenge you, and do you like the way that they go about doing that? All right, so those are some things to consider when thinking about if your advisor is working for you and and how well that person is working for you. In the meantime, between now and next week, feel free to leave comments here in the comment section. I would love to hear about your experiences with academic advising, questions that you have that I can take up here. You can also email me, leahhall39@gmail.com, and please consider subscribing to the channel where you will continue to get more tips about grad student life and what you can do to make it successful.